We've talked about this before, but it bears some repeating because it is so important to understand that there are certain things that could happen that would immediately trigger the next global conflict. And we're talking about things that are very specific things that would have to happen in order to pull the trigger on World War III. I'm not trying to be sensational, but there are certain things that we should know about and be aware of because they could lead to a global conflict. And again, it's not something we talk about very often, but it is something that is on the minds of many people involved in national security and intelligence around the world. So, let me give you a few things that would immediately trigger the next global conflict. A large country, which we've talked about before. China or Russia invades a sovereign nation. Now, if that happens, depending on how the rest of the world responds, that could trigger a global conflict. If the United Nations and NATO and other countries respond swiftly and with force, that could spiral out of control very quickly. But that's one possibility. We've talked about that. Another possibility would be the closing of the Straits of Hormuz. Now, the Straits of Hormuz is a very narrow waterway between Iran and Oman through which a significant amount of oil passes. If for some reason, either through military action or some other type of blockade, the Strait of Hormuz were to be closed, that would immediately send shockwaves throughout the entire world economy and would lead to chaos. And if it became known that one country was responsible for that, that could lead to an immediate global conflict. Another thing that could happen, and again, we've talked about this before, is a major cyber attack against a country or countries that could be traced back to a nation state. If, for example, a major cyber attack took down power grids and other critical infrastructure and could be traced back to Russia or China, that could trigger a global conflict. Another possibility, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it is a real concern. The use of nuclear weapons against a country or a city. Now, even if it's not a major city, if it's used against a country and it's traced back to a nation state, that could absolutely trigger a global conflict. The last thing I'll mention, and we've talked about this as well, is the assassination of a head of state. If for some reason, either through a cyber attack or some other means, the President of the United States, for example, were to be assassinated, and it could be traced back to a foreign government, that would absolutely lead to a global conflict. So those are just some things we should be aware of. Those are some things that could lead to a global conflict. Again, it's not something we talk about every day, but it is something that is on the minds of many people in intelligence and national security around the world. If you want to know more about what's going on in the world, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter by clicking the link below. It's absolutely free. We keep you in the loop on what's really going on in Washington, D.C. with national security and other important issues. Thank you for watching. God bless you. And please remember, only 69% of Americans can pass this geography quiz. Can you pause it? Take the quiz to find out.